Hello. Welcome to Papa's Archives, where I tell stories I want to tell my kids, but maybe not at the dinner table. Today, I'm going to be talking about Carpe Diem, which is Latin for seize the day. And it's kind of a philosophical talk today about career choice and how to plan for your future, whether you should plan for your future. Well, stop. I'm not going to say should. I don't want to give you advice about this stuff, about whether you should be living a life in the present or living a life planning for the future all the time. I'll define this a little bit, but I want to preface this talk today by saying that I'm not going to give you advice on what you should do for how much you spend your life planning for the future versus how much you spend your life enjoying the moment. And specifically, instead of giving advice, I'm just going to talk about what I did in relation to skiing. And then hopefully that will help you make some decisions in the future. Around high school, university, when you start thinking about your career and what you want to study and what you want to do with your life, you're going to start having to balance how much do I want to prepare versus how much do I want to live right now. The whole Carpe Diem philosophy that, seize the day is the English for it. It's just reflective of the fact that you might die tomorrow. And while you're dying, you don't want to regret having not lived to your fullest potential. So that's kind of where that philosophy roots from. Now there's another, more of a Buddhist philosophy that kind of encapsulates the same thinking. Whereas if you are living in the past, meaning you're always reflecting on memories, music, something to bring you back to the past when life was better, then you are depressed. You're in a depressed state of mind. If you are always thinking about the future, about what can happen in the future, how your life can move forward or be better or be worse, then you are suffering from anxiety. And both of those are different types of mental illness that kind of go hand in hand. But so the Buddhist teaching is that the real happiness comes from living in the moment, right now. And there's some truth to that, for sure, I believe. But there's also truth in that the future's coming. It's going to come. And I always say to you kids, that this is my future right now. 2022, I'm 46 years old. I'll be 47 in 2 months. I feel like I'm already 47. But if you would have told me 30 years ago when I was in high school that I would be here right now, driving this car, talking to my phone, putting it on YouTube to archive for generations following me in Japan. Oh, birdie. It's a beautiful hawk. He's right next to me right there. I'm just watching him fly. He's flying with me. What a beautiful bird. Who was that saying hi to me? I have another concept about animals. I'll get into that another day. What was I saying? If you would have told me I would be here in Japan, I would have asked you, where's Japan? Like, I was so naive about what the future was going to look like. Again, with the whole internet. This is another talk I want to do a different day about how you can't imagine the future. But today I kind of want to stick to the philosophical side of, should you choose a career that allows you happiness now in your 20s when you're young? Or should you be choosing a career that is setting up a big retirement for when you get older? That's the big question that people in their 20s generally ask. And here's the thing. I never imagined that this future would be here. I never imagined the internet. I never imagined iPhones. Blew me away when they were released. I got my first email address when I was 18, my first computer. And back then there was no video on the internet. So it was really hard to understand what the internet was going to become. And the way it has shaped our culture now is just mind-blowing to me. So I always say to you kids, like, this is my future, and it's so wild. So in your 20s, in university, high school, if you go to university, you're going to be asking yourself if you want to be choosing a, like a high stress career that gives you a nice retirement, or if you want a low stress career and that's enjoyable and maybe not a huge retirement, but your life in the present day to day is very peaceful. And that's what you're living for, is the present, or are you living for the future? And there's no wrong answer to that. You have to choose yourself, because if you take somebody's advice on that and do what they told you, you're going to regret it no matter what, because it wasn't your decision. So you have to make that yourself and allow for your own mistakes. If you make mistakes along the way, I mean, you can change them, but you want to know that you did your best in the past, then you won't regret your decisions that you made. So I have friends that I grew up with and went to high school with that are now millionaires because they chose a very different path from myself. I chose to go skiing, and they chose to enter the career world in tech, in medicine, their own companies, building transmissions, roofing. I know I haven't really kept in touch with too many, but I know of like half a dozen kids that are multi-millionaires now, because they dove in to career world right as soon as they could, and they wanted to set up their future, and they did. Good for them. I applaud them. When I was younger, and I don't want to sound like I regret this, because I don't regret it at all, but when I was younger, I wanted to ski, and that was my peace, that was my church, that was my best experience at that time, was being in the mountains and choosing lines and then working to get those lines and skiing those lines and then never seeing them again because the moment is over. And it was completely living for the moment. It was very, very peaceful stuff. I would prepare for that line, but it was with the notion, with the idea, knowing that when I'm in that moment, nothing else will exist. I won't be thinking about anything else. And that was my peace. That was my meditation. That was my spirituality. That's where I would thank God. Like literally, I would say, thank you, God, for that line. Thank you, God, for that moment. Because they were so magical. There's still nothing in this to this day. Again, I'm almost 47. There's nothing that compares to skiing. Like, I'm talking new snow. It's just, oh my Lord. So that was my path, and it took me 7 years to finish college because I was part-time the whole time. I skied every day. And back in the late 90s, if you didn't have a career choice that you wanted, you went to college anyway. You took out student loans and tons of debt to do it because you didn't want to be a loser who didn't go to college. And boy, were we wrong. A lot of what I have today is because I have a college degree, for sure. But to be honest with you, after that 7 years, another 10 years later, how old was I? Whatever. I got a master's degree, and that was another 2 years of school. So I have, 9 years of university inside me, of pent up. Like, I never wanted to be a teacher. It wasn't my dream. So as a teacher now, and basically after having built a career as a teacher, I don't feel regret, but I feel like it was never my dream. Does that make sense? Like, it was never, I'm gonna go be a teacher. I never said that. It was always like, oh, I need a job, and here we go. And there you go. That's it. It's always just been a job. Now, I love being in the classroom with students because they're young and they don't realize yet that life is unfair. When you graduate, you learn that life is unfair. And then you meet jerks in the workplace that are really unhappy with their life. And then, half the adults, not half, but some adults are really unhappy and they're angry and they're rude to other people. But kids aren't like that. Kids, they just think life is just woohoo. So I love being in the classroom. But the career, because it was never my dream, is just kind of unsatisfying. But I don't regret it, because if I didn't go for, trying to be a pro skier, I would be eating that regret hard if I didn't give it a go. Like, I gave it a hard go. I pushed hard, and I got a lot of injuries because of it. And that's another conversation. But in that time, I knew that I can only ski at this level now. Because that was a world-class level that I was competing at. And I knew, like, you can't ski at this level when you're 40, Nathan. You got to do it now. I was kind of wrong, because 40 is the new 30. And I know a lot of people that I used to compete with that are in their 40s now that shred. They ski like they're 25. It's freaking amazing. So you can stay fit and you can keep skiing. And anyway, chasing pro through my 20s basically is what it was a Carpe Diem thing. It was like, this is my time to do it. Now is when I go. And I talked to you about New Zealand. Go back to the New Zealand video if you haven't watched it yet. But about how I had an injury in a competition. A dry throat. So, and I had to compete the next day after I got stitches in my chin and I had a concussion. And my roommate was like, if you don't compete today, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And I knew that I would. But I had already chosen to do that. But he was just trying to be my bro. And to this day, I totally reflect on that. Like, because that was one of my defining days of this is a Carpe Diem mentality towards life. Like, you do it now. Today is your day. Do it now. There is no tomorrow. You might die tomorrow, or tomorrow might not come. You might die in your sleep, or whatever happens. So there's that philosophy towards life that you have to balance, and you're going to balance it, and you don't decide one day. I mean, you kind of decide it every day. That you go to work, and every resume that you submit, and every meeting that you have, like, as time goes on, time becomes more and more valuable, and you start to realize, like, hey, wait a minute, I didn't prepare for this. I didn't prepare for 2022. I didn't know this day was coming. Things are better now, but I sometimes wonder, like, what if I'd stayed in Minnesota and never tried to be a skier and just got into medicine, because that was another option, in, like, the medical capital of the U.S., but with the Mayo Clinic. Where would I be now? And I would probably be fairly wealthy and miserable because I never skied. That would have been eating me up right now. Because I knew I was a good skier, and I would be watching all these competitions on TV, and I'm laughing because it's the internet. The internet's TV now, it's the same thing. And I would be watching all these competitions, and I would be like, dude, I can ski at that level. And it's like, now that I have, and I did, and I didn't, actually win onto the world tour, I gave it my all, and I'm so satisfied with it. So now I watch, and I'm like, I should be competing again. That's still fun. But, like, I would be miserable if I was still in Minnesota, for sure. It's all hypothetical. I mean, who knows what would have happened. But you think about that stuff as you get older, and you do not want to be regretting not giving it your all, the chance that you had. But at the same time, you have to find your balance with preparing for the future, because the future is going to come and you cannot imagine it. And I think this is a 2-part talk today. I think the next part is going to talk about how our perception of time changes as we get older. I have a whole hour on that. Well, 30 minutes. It's a beautiful car in front of me. That's the new TT, I guess. Anyway, Carpe Diem. Thank you for watching Papa's Archives. This is where I tell stories I want to tell my kids, but maybe not at the dinner table. And today's intention was to get a little bit philosophical and just kind of talk about skiing and how much I do or don't regret it. Because as you are entering into adulthood, and probably maybe even as you're 40 years old, you're probably still having this conversation with yourself. And sometimes it's nice to hear Papa's or Grandpa's take on this. And the final take I'll say is that I'm stoked with where I'm at, because I threw down hard. I have a lot of injuries now, though, which kind of sucks, Like, I can't throw a baseball. And what else can't I do? Well, all of my joints have been basically replaced, except for my left knee is the only good joint I have left. So there was another guy who said it. When I die, I want to come sliding into home base at heaven, just beat up in tatters with no body parts working anymore, because he lived life so fast. I was just going to end this video, but I realized I still have things to say, because I have some ski heroes that did die skiing. Friends. I don't want to get too emotional right now, but like, you can get into it and believe like this is your moment, and you're living just in the present. But at the same time, if you die while you're doing that, I mean, what's the point of that? So I know guys who didn't make it, and I can't say that they're in heaven not regretting their decisions to live a long life. I mean, I don't know. That's all hypothetical. You can debate that all you want. You'll never win the debate. You'll never be right. And again, this is why you have to make these decisions, or why I don't want to give you advice, because you just have to fail on your own and come up with your own conclusion. Just, think it through. Definitely think it through. Because being 47 with a family is way better than dying skiing when I was 25. Bro. It's like 2 lives. But at the time, I mean, he was giving it his best. He was trying to, not just he, they. There's more than one dude. They were trying to just live their best moment. And, accidents happen. You can die in a bus crash. That's the argument. Like, you can die in a bus crash. Why live your life in fear, scared of falling on skis? Well, I mean, you have to balance the risks. Do you really want to? I mean, you don't have to take that big of a risk today in the spirit of Carpe Diem. Like, you have to learn how to balance this stuff. And not saying that they didn't balance it well, because accidents do happen, and people do get hit by buses, and people do die in avalanches. And I mean, I've been in avalanches. That's another video. They're real. Like, tragedy happens quick. It's unprepared for. That's why they call it tragedy, I guess. Like, that's the definition, right? I'm getting a little heavy here. It's okay. But you're gonna have to balance this stuff. Once I start repeating myself, I realize I'm done talking. So, again, the 2 point of this, we'll be getting into some other injuries and stuff, and I can go a few different directions from here. But I want that Audi in front of me, but I don't need it. Love you guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.